Well, today I wanted to talk about X-Doors. Um, Hard to get, and when you do get a set, usually bad surprises ensue, and this was no exception, although I was really lucky that the seller is a straight guy and sent me a new skin to replace this one. As you can tell, this one is delaminated. It is also cracked all the way down. It would be a heck of a job to get it back to looking like new. And that's my intent, is to restore these doors to make sure they look new. So, new skin, well, new to someone. Now what I'm going to do today is basically completely disassemble it so that the skin is completely exposed and so that it can be refinished and all the parts can be powder coated before being reinstalled with brand new hardware. So here is what a used door typically looks like. As you can tell, it's well worn, needs quite a bit of work, and as we get down closer, usually this part right here is bent. Most of them are. Some can be repaired, straightened out, others cannot. As you can tell, this locking mechanism is probably not going to survive the restoration, although all the parts are here. Door handle, probably same thing, it's all rusted inside, but it's generally complete, including those really important L brackets here, which basically keep the window from going all the way down. As you can tell, the only way to restore this thing is really to take it completely apart. And that means popping a lot of rivets. There's a ton of rivets. First of all, on the circling, going all around right there. And then for the frame of the window, the gliding piece here, which allows this knob to actually lock in. And here's one I did yesterday. So all the hardware is completely removed. It's down to what's called the skin. A lot of flaky paint. You can tell how many different coats of paint have been applied to this door. So it's been around for a while. But it's generally in good shape. So it's going to be a bit of work to strip the paint off of this, reminding everyone that the military use caulk paint, which is resistant to chemicals. So using a chemical stripper is not in the cards. You got to find abrasives and other methods to take the paint off. So yeah, today's job is going to be to take this guy apart and see how many parts are salvageable. Here are some of the parts from yesterday. Here's a good example of this part being bent, and in this case even broken. So this thing is a goner. We're gonna have to start over. Thankfully I have a few in stock, so I'll be able to show you what original looks like and what fully powder coated looks like. So stay tuned. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the hinges off. Now, as you can probably tell, these are not original fasteners, and the backer is also not original. This is what they should look like. It's also a lot thicker than the original. So I can tell that this thing's been repaired before. You can also tell that some of the fasteners here are not original. We'll have to see if everything is actually coming out easily. That's maybe a challenge, but we'll try it. So let's go. Let's take those hinges off and see what we got. All right, so let's try to take these off. I tend to use a short little screwdriver. It's easier to reach and control the screw on there. Yeah, these are coming right off. Not original. There you go. Damage is done. So here we got some hinges that I suspect are not original. You can tell from the bad weld here. So thankfully I have a few of those in stock, so we'll be able to replace this with originals. And let's do the second one. Look at that, I managed not to drop it. Yeah, same thing. These are not original hinges, so they're gonna go in the bin. So, as mentioned, these are clearly not original, but as always, I have a few of these in stock as well, so we'll be able to replace all the hardware with originals. Okay, so next we're going to try to take these off right here, to take the handlebar off. That'll make it easier to access everything. Now, these screws are going into some riv nuts here. Now, very often I have found that the riv nuts will come loose and turn on their own, making it a whole lot more difficult to remove. In this case, no problem. Well, I shouldn't talk so fast. There you go. Okay, so these two came right off. Let's do the other ones. Okay, it's off. So now we got to take this nut right here, which basically holds the handlebar to the lock mechanism. Okay, this one is off, and it's got, try to bring this over here so you can see. So this thing's got the wrong washer for the simple reason that, if you can see, the washer is actually supposed to go around the shaft so that there is no pressure on the handlebar so that it can rotate freely within this. So we'll have to replace this washer as well. And same thing for this flanged bolt. So there you go. Comes all right off. This one doesn't appear to be too damaged. So that's probably salvageable. And just so that you get a sense, that's what it looks like when it's powder coated. So they come out really nice. Nice strip job, and then a good powder coat, and these look like new. So next thing we're gonna do is we have to take this little clip apart. This basically maintains solidarity between the lock mechanism and the handlebar, so that, let me try to do this. Make sure we're still in line, so that when I pull, you can tell this thing is completely frozen almost, but this allows the handle to basically operate the lock. So there's a little clip here, and I strongly suggest not to do this with your hands because it's rusty and sharp. So all we do is basically remove it. This way and pull it. Here we go. And now we can remove this thing, and we can start taking those guys off. To remove the handle, I'm pretty sure that these screws right here are the only 11/32 in the whole truck, but took me a while to figure out why that was not working. I was trying metrics and everything, and finally realized that it's 11/32. All right, some of them are in really bad shape, but here we go. Okay, got them all off. Yeah, that's gonna take a little bit of help from my faithful hammer to get that off. Here we go. There we go. So something really interesting about how these things are put together. As you can tell here, I'm hoping you can tell, there's a little pivot here. You know, it's the extension of the bar on which this thing pivots. And there is a little notch here. And you have to make sure that this notch is there, because otherwise, when this thing turns, it's gonna rub and not function properly. Ask me how I found out. So I suggest making sure when you rebuild the door to make sure this notch is there. And then what I do is I actually have a friend make me a reinforcement for the back, which basically goes all around. It's a metal circling. Because as you can tell, some of these holes here are pretty gnarly, and unfortunately they're all like that. So there you go. Our handle is removed. I don't know if you can tell, but it's pretty cruddy in there. I'm not sure if this thing is it still functions. It may very well be that with a good sandblast and a good stay into a WD-40 bath, this may be salvageable and restored. So we're gonna try. All right. Last but not least, the locking mechanism. Now this one is pretty far gone. First thing you want to do is take that spring off, There we go. That releases the tension, but also gives you access to the bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's see if we're able to get those off. Yep, wrong bit. And I'm gonna have to go get a long 7/16. So before we get started with our L bracket, just wanted to remind you that it's really important to keep all of the original hardware, particularly those linkages here, are not hard to find, but when you need it and you don't have it, it's a pain in the ass, and they're easy to restore. That little clip, if you can't find a new one, it's good to keep it. That can be restored quite easily as well. And put everything in a bag, even the old hardware that's not usable anymore. At the very least, it gives you a reference if you need to buy new hardware. So then you have to go and fish for it. I usually don't keep any of the hardware that's not original. There's no point. But, you know, things like this, this particular one is actually took me forever to figure out in the first doors I did. So now I keep it as a reference. So everything goes in there. And this way, if I need to reference anything later, I know where to go. So now we're going to take those L brackets off. So the one at the top here, there is a nut, but that nut fits perfectly into the channel, so I actually don't need anything to hold the nut. But whoever put that on did a really good job of pushing this hard. So I'm gonna put a little oil on there too and let it work. Even though this is not original, apparently it's over tight. So let's try that. So put some oil. Not ideal, but necessary. There we go. We'll do the same thing on the other side. There we go. Let it work its magic. What we're gonna do is push the window out of the way so that those nuts are available if necessary. As I said, the top one fits perfectly into the channel, so you can't attack it from the other side. You really have to do it from the front. So I'm gonna try to get a wider. Here we go. See if we have any better luck now. There you go. Now for the other one, there you go. That was easy. All right, so those L brackets are extremely difficult to find, and they're not symmetrical. So the right one doesn't match the position of the left one, obviously. And so you have to have both in order to make this functional. And then I managed to find those rubber bumpers on McMaster quite easily. So that one will be easy to restore. So there you go. Now I got to do the other side. Using penetrating mold. This up a little bit. There you go. Just like this. All right. And actually, this one doesn't have a bumper, so it didn't serve much of a function. But thankfully, we got plenty, so we'll put one on. So there you go. Our L brackets are off. They go in the bag, ready for restoration. So now what we're going to do is we are going to slide the window off and making sure, let's see, can you see me here? Let me readjust this a little bit. You see better. Here we go. All right, so make sure that you pull on this, because otherwise it's gonna get into the groove here, and then we're just gonna slide it off. So the big thing to remember here is that you have those rollers. Now, here's a hack job. Someone took pieces of PVC pipe, apparently, from Home Depot. What really should go on there is a little roller like this. I find them on eBay. Those are nothing. Unfortunately, people want a fortune for it, so I try to save them as much as possible. So, should be 4 of them, and with my luck, I have one usable one on this door, one entire, and 3 pieces of PVC pipe. So clearly this was not a military repair. Somebody screwed around with this at some point. So off with the window. I'll show you later how I take the windows off. That's a job in itself. And my last remaining roller here, I'm going to save it. So now we are almost done. If I can only get those. Let's see if we go a little more like this. If I can get this guy off, that'll be a good deal. All right, I'm in. There you go. Okay, I got lucky, because I tell you, these are pretty cruddy. So there you go. Here's our locking mechanism. I mean, this thing could theoretically be restored. It's bent. It's rusted. I'm probably not going to try. Probably get a new one. That'll take a lot less time and effort. And then, more importantly, the shim. So these are specific. And in some cases, I've had to put more than one behind the lock to make it fit properly. So it's really important to save these. And I blast them and powder coat them, and they're good to go. So now we're done with removing all the mechanical parts of the door. And now we're gonna have to flip this thing and start getting our rivets. And so let's get on with it, and I'll show you how I do it. So before we attack the rivets, I wanted to talk about the rubber gaskets that circles around the door. Now, those that are original basically are inserted into a very complicated groove. I don't know if you can tell from this, but it has basically a set of barbs that catch into those grooves. And to tell you the truth, I've never figured out a way to insert it properly. I tried on the first set of doors I did. It was an absolute disaster. It's hard. There's got to be a tool or a trick. And I know some guys are going to chime in and say, you know, that was easy. You just don't know what you're doing. And that's probably true. But I gave up. I decided that it wasn't worth the effort. So on the first set of doors, I removed it. And then it took me a full day, if not more, to actually remove the rubber from inside the groove where it was stuck. And on the next set of doors I did, I realized that it wasn't necessary. For the simple reason, as you can tell here, I managed to remove some of it, but as you can tell, starting here, there's still some rubber inside. And what I do is I just cut it off and leave it in there and do all of the processing and powder coating, and it doesn't affect it one bit. And then when I'm done, I use this rubber gasket. It's basically a D-shaped, I don't know if you can tell from that, with a very heavy double-sided tape on it from 3M, and that's what I install. It makes it a little more difficult, particularly in the corner. I don't know if you can tell at this side, particularly on the front door, there's a corner, and so you have to make a notch in order to make the turn. But that's easily done. I'll show you how I do that when we actually install the doors, which is going to be probably a few weeks from now, by the time I get these things restored and ready to install on the unit. So honestly, what I do is I just cut it off. And it is super simple. You start here and just go with a good knife and cut. Well, as I said, it's not as easy to get started. Probably need to change the blade. It's a little bit worn off, but there you go. And the idea is to make sure that you're cutting right at the edge. As you can see, not that difficult, and saves a ton of time. And you can always come back a little bit later if it's not perfect, but honestly, it doesn't matter one way or the other. At least not to me. Gotta be careful going around the rivets. The point of the knife doesn't like those. There you go. there it is. It's off. Now it's time to flip this door and get started with our rivets. All right, so we're ready to remove our rivets, so let's talk about what we need. Obviously, we need a drill. What I use is a short 3/16 bit with a fairly shallow point. I find it's easier, particularly when you have to dig in a little bit. You'll find that in some cases, the rivets are coming loose, which means they'll turn with the drill, and it becomes a lot harder to remove them. But basically the idea is you want to remove the head of the rivet in order to be able to punch the shaft out of the hole. Next thing you'll need is basically this punch. This is a 3/16 punch, so that it'll fit perfectly into the hole and basically eject the shaft. And then last thing obviously is you need a hammer. So let's get started. All right, so we'll start with the first one. And what I do is I just position the drill into the head of the rivet, and I go very slowly so that it centers itself and also cuts out some of the paint or gunk or whatever may be on top of the rivet. Once I've done that, I go at it. And there you go. Now you can see the head of the rivet is on the shaft. And so what I'm going to do is take it off. Once I've done this, I take my punch, put it into the hole, all right, this one is not happy, so I'm going to give it a little more. There you go. It's out. Now there's still a little bit of the shaft in there, so what I'm going to do is push it out, because otherwise, there you go, it fell off. And that's it. That's all there is to it. And now let's do another one, just for the fun of it. Here we go. Put it in there, position, go really slow. There you go. The head came off. Give it a shot. That's it. Came right out. That's all there is to it. Now, as I do this, if I come across one that actually starts spinning, I'll point that out and show you what I do, which is basically wiggle the head a little bit, and so that it comes off more easily. This door, as you can tell, is shot. It's completely shot. It's got no structure left. But I'm still going to take the circling off. It's always useful to have one. I've had a couple of them be really, really damaged when I took them off, and it's always nice to have extras. So here we go. I'm just going to go ahead and take them all off and show you how I get the circling off once the rivets are drilled out. Okay, so I got all the rivets off. Took me a couple tries on some of them, but they all came off pretty easy, which is nice. Doesn't happen every time. So now I got to take this circling off, remembering that I have some of the rubber that's still running through here. So it's going to kind of keep those two pieces together, but it's basically it's made up of three pieces. There's one at the top that goes around to the corner, another one that's a U shape that goes all around the bottom, and then a smaller piece on the back side of the door. So what I'm going to do is just nudge it out a little bit, just like that. Now you can see it's not attached anymore, and what I'm going to do is give it a little bit of a cut for the rubber. Make sure that it's not holding everything up. There you go. Now they're separated. So what I can do is start pushing this down. That's the only way it's going to come off. So as you can see, it is now coming off over here, and now we're gonna have to do the same thing on the other side. Let me try to move this so you have a better view. Here we go. So same thing here, pushing it out first. Enough so that I can cut. There you go. And now what I'm going to do is push this down again, because if you don't do this, you're going to deform the shape, and that's not a good thing when you want to put it back. There you go. Here it is. So we got our U-shaped piece. Came off beautifully. It's actually in great shape, so that's a good piece to keep. Now we have the small piece on this side. It comes right off, and look at that, the rubber came out. That's a nice bonus. So here's the little front piece, back piece. I'm gonna put that aside. And now we're gonna push this one out like we did the other. There you go, it's dislodged. And now we can, there you go, comes right off. So here's the third piece that makes up the door. As you can tell, the rubber came out quite easily. Not so much on this side. It's nice and stuck in there. I'm gonna cut it off. There you go. All right, so now we've got the circling off, and we're gonna have to take all of those rivets out, which basically hold the frame for the window, and also the rail that allows the window to go up and down. Well, all right. I managed to get everything off. Every rivet came out really well, so generally we're good. All of the parts, the channels are off the door. Now the last challenge is, as you can see, inside these channels, there is this brush that goes against the glass and basically prevents air from penetrating into the cab. These things are basically placed into the channel here, and they slide in. So it starts over here and you slide it in. The problem is, after so many years, these things are stuck in there. And so what I've done is I have taken some penetrating oil and basically injected oil into the channel, let it soak a little bit, and then basically grab one end, and look at that, it slides right out. There's one more over here, and this one doesn't have an end sticking out, so it's usually a bit more of a challenge. And so what I'm going to do is grab it on one end and try to make it move, go back and forth a little bit. Yeah, this one's in really good. So I'm gonna go back and put a little more oil and see what happens. There's always one that doesn't want to come out. So generally, this door was fairly simple to take apart. Takes a while. It takes me about 2.5 to 3 hours per door to take them apart. I'm sure someone a bit more experienced would do it quicker. Yeah, that's what it takes to get these doors perfect and like new. All right, now it's time for us to disassemble the windows. And I have found that these are sometimes the most difficult part. And one of the reasons is these screws right here are usually corroded, and unfortunately this one doesn't look so bad. This one is completely rusted, and we have the same thing on the other side on each corner. And essentially those 4 screws are what holds the entire frame together. And to go after that, for example, this one, I don't know if you can tell, but someone's already tried it and it's pretty much stripped. So it's going to require an extractor to get this one right. And I have to admit, I'm not particularly good with those things. So I'm going to give it a try and see how it goes. But you have to be super careful with those 4 screws. The head can easily break off, and then it's very, very hard to get the shaft off of there. This screws goes into the channel of this side piece, and it's been historically my biggest issue with these doors. So I'm gonna give it a try and see how it goes. So what I'm finding out is that 3 of those screws are fine. So what I'm going to do is attempt to get the glass out by taking 3 of the screws out. And getting to the last one on a bench. Yep, this one's coming off as well. Although it appears to be damaged, so I'm lucky that it's coming out. And as you can probably tell, maybe not, these are wood screws. They're basically some type of what you would use on a wood screw. So so there we go. And now it's a matter of taking those parts off. Here's one side. Another screw. And basically, I'm going to try to remove this. There we go. So the glass came out. This piece is interesting. It appears to be delaminated. I'll look at that later. And then of course the rubber gasket that goes around. Actually, this one doesn't look so bad. It could potentially be reused, although I have all brand new ones. So I'm gonna set this glass aside, worry about that later. Now I have to worry about this screw right here, which is completely stripped, and there is potentially a way I was hoping that would come out, but it's not going to. It's really screwed up. May even have to drill it out. We'll see. So I'll keep you posted. And of course, here are the studs that are meant to hold the little plastic caps that serve as guides for the window to go up and down. Now, the last thing we need to do is to remove this part right here, which is held by two screws right here on the inside. Those are also very often corroded, just like these are, but they're not stripped. So yeah, I'm probably gonna strip it trying to do this. Let's try it. Yeah, it's not moving. So I'm gonna put some penetrating oil and hope for the best. I'll keep you posted.